I have some scraps left over and today I want to make a cute flower mini table topper. Now looking at my scraps, I do see I can trim them down to a 3-inch square. So I'm going to go ahead and do so just to square things up. Now, if you are using your scraps, you can use whatever size you have laying around, or if you want, you can do rectangles, triangles, whichever you prefer. This project is all about using up your scraps. But I went ahead and printed out my flower mini table topper template, say that 5 times fast, which of course will always be available in the link down below in the description. And it is just a template, but I'm going to go ahead and cut out the template. Now I went ahead and estimated how many squares I would need to sew across, which in this case was 5 3-inch squares. And I also triple checked with my template just to make sure. But now that I know 5 squares will work across, I'm going to go ahead and cut a few more 3-inch squares and make a 5x5 mini quilt. Now, once again, if you are using, let's say, 2.5-inch squares, that is fine. You will just need more than 5 squares across. And if you want to use a leftover charm pack squares, then you'll need less. But this mini quilt is mostly here just to use up your scraps and use your stash and basically make sure nothing gets wasted. But once I have everything cut out, I'm just going to go ahead and sew everything together to make a mini quilt. Now, this flower mini table topper is about a 15-inch square. But luckily, I have some leftover backing from when I quilted my king size quilt, and I'm going to go ahead and use that up for the back of this mini quilt, as well as some scrap batting that I have laying around too. Now, remember, we are using all our scraps, but you are going to go ahead and make a mini quilt and quilt it. Now, I cheated a little bit and I went ahead and quilted my new edge to edge pattern called Triple Scallops, which is available on my website as well, link down below in the description. And I'm in love with this quilting pattern. It came out so cute. But once you have everything quilted, just go ahead and trim off the excess batting and backing. And then using a fabric erasable marker or chalk, we are going to mark the scallop edges. And I went ahead and flipped my quilt to the back because it is white and easier to see the markings. And I just marked the scallop edge 1/4 inch of the mini quilt at a time. And then I went ahead and took my fabric scissors and cut the flower shape out. How I figured out how much binding I will need is I used my curve bias binding method and treated it as a circle. So once I had all my bias binding cut, I went ahead and triple checked to make sure I had enough to go around each petal. But before I put the binding on, I flipped it over to the side that I'm going to first start putting my binding on, which I start on the back. And I went ahead and marked the inner points. That way, when I am machine binding, I kind of know where to stop my needle. So that way I can carefully fold over the edges and then continue onwards to the next petal shape. So I'm going to go ahead and make my way all around, and then I'm going to flip it over and stuff everything in it just like my circle quilt. Now, this part is the trickiest, and if you have been with me since the very beginning of this year, one of my quilting goals is to learn something new and also challenge myself. And here is my challenge. I've always wanted to do a curved scallop edge on a quilt, but I've always been hesitant. And here it is. For the first time, and also for my very first quilt, I have now finally binded a scallop edge, and it's not the prettiest, but it's also not that bad. I did use a 2¼ inch binding since it is a mini quilt, but next time I think I will stick to a larger binding just to see if that would help because it was a little tricky and a lot to stuff in that curved inner crease. But if you could, please take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you can be notified for your next amazing project.